Welcome everyone. Nick Ottinger here with Team Conti Sim Performance. Season 2 is this week. And our first week will be at Homestead, Miami Speedway. Just to speak plainly, as you can see, our weather is going to be at 6:20 in the evening. Means we're going to have some grip. These tires will feel like Superman, the first 5 to 10 laps, and judging by that pace, we can quickly fall off. So this video is going to be informative on how I'm going to be breaking down our entry phases, our rolling phases, after our brake pedal usage, and then how we can navigate some throttle into making the lap time for the lap. So what I'm going to start this video with is just pretty simple. I'm going to let this play through for 5 laps, and then I'm going to advance to the 10th lap and dissect that with you guys and give you some pointers, what I'm looking at and what I'm feeling in the car. And then after that, it will be pretty productive in understanding how lap 25 is as well, because our pace is falling off, but also the top side and 1 and 2, how much of a benefit can be. So I'm gonna let this roll through for 5 laps, and yeah, I'm just gonna let this kind of play itself, and we'll dissect it later. Alright, that's 5 straight laps in driver perspective here. Once we get to start finish line, I will roll through to the 10th lap and dissect it with you guys. So, gonna let this play. Now, to explain a little bit what you guys saw, you saw a pretty aggressive hot lap on lap 2. Your second or third lap is going to be your best, depending on what you're trying to get out of it, how much you push and pace out of it. So, second lap, tires are up to temperature, tires are actually getting primed, and you have more grip through 1 and 2, and specifically 3 and 4, you have more potential to lean on the outside of the tire. So, your second lap, more often than not, is going to be the most optimal. Now, you really have to dissect these corners. You really have a phase of all the phases of what you need to navigate at multiple tracks. Like a short track, you'd be on the brake quite heavily, and you'd have a rolling phase, and then you'd also be back to the throttle pretty heavy, trying to drive straight off a corner. It's much like this track. You have some of that same quality that you would at a short track, but you're really just navigating your entry speed more than anything and balancing the car into working to the white line. So let this kind of flow in slow mo here, and you're going to notice when I'm actually turning away from the wall. And right now, I'm right under a sign, on the fence. And you can see my wheels just slightly turned away from the wall, instead of being, our orange marker here on the steering wheel being out here. I'm working to turn away from the wall. Why that's important? I'm trying to get away from the wall to help my really angle to where I want to get to the white line. So I'm back this up just a hair. You see the Baptist Health sign right above us, and you're going to see I'm starting to turn away before it, starting to load the front end just a little bit so I can actually fully turn away. Now again, I'm not lifting at this phase. Why that's important is I'm actually trying to set up for my entry angle to turn one here, and I don't want to have too shallow of an entry because I don't want to take such an aggressive amount of speed off my entry momentum because of having too shallow of an entry and having to use too much wheel input. So now, once I start my deceleration rate, which is when I'm getting off the throttle, once I start lifting, very important. You can see I'm transitioning to the brake pedal quite quickly. So let's slow it down again. Getting off the throttle quite quick, and now I'm having a low crossover point to my brake pedal. I don't have a heavy brake pressure overall, working into my entry because we're in a low temperature. I don't need to take that much speed away on entry. If we had 30-degree track temps, like I'd have to use more brake pedal for a longer duration to slow my entry because I'm just not going to have all that grip to withstand the banking, change and transition ultimately with these tires, even early on. So I'm going to slow this down, keep it slow. Still a very minimal braking, right? And I'm going to carry all that braking until I'm loading into across these seams and even into the white line. Once the right rear tire crosses the seam is when now I know I have pretty much the distance I need from left to right because it's a car width from the white line down, and above to the seam right here. So thinking about that, you have a lot of grip, getting to this painted line. It's what makes lap time at this track. If you can actually have a car that wraps this white line and can power off while keeping this angle on exit and driving straight off a corner, when you're in a 100% throttle stage. But here, pretty simple. I'm not like 25% brake, the whole distance to slow it down. And if you guys are using 25% brake, the longer you carry that brake usage, you're actually going to pitch the car free because much like a short track, you get to the brake pressure, you're changing the car dynamically. You're actually letting the front load down to the racetrack and the rear pop up off the racetrack. So you're changing it dynamically. You're changing the pitch of the car. And that'll give you a lot of handling variations. If you're doing that too heavy of a brake pressure fill, especially the longer duration you get, you're actually going to make the car freer on entry, especially when you're adding more wheel input. So very key to make sure you get to this angle and you're maximizing your speed with not having to use too much brake pressure. So we can have a good consistent fill in once we're in the rolling phase. Gonna let this play a little bit. Complete rolling phase again here, right? Still over rolling phase. Now I'm to initial throttle, and that's probably happening 100, 150 feet after I get off the brake. And it's going to be continuous that way, especially when the tires start wearing, start getting too much heat, start getting, greasy on entry. So you can still see my angle, wrapping this white line as much as possible. And my initial throttle, I'm not 100% throttle, just because I don't want to actually break free with 10 laps into the run. So got to make sure I'm maximizing my angle as far as I can to realize where I need to get off the bottom of this track to manage my exit angle. And if I'm just getting to too heavy of a throttle right here, like I'm going to just push a little bit tight, or I'm going to get too free and get out of shape with all the wheel angle I have. So you can see, still partial throttle, maintenance throttle, still maintenance throttle, and trying to keep this ability of wrapping this white line. Now I'm 100% throttle, and now I still have this potential to wrap further, but I don't want to pinch my exit ultimately, because if I'm pinching my exit, I'm just actually going to create the right rear being too dominant in this sense because of all the steering angle I have to exit the corner. So it's really important to understand where to open the wheel up after your 100% throttle moment. So let me rewind this a little bit. You can still see I'm 100% throttle moment really right now. Angle straight, still trying to wrap the exit. And if I continue this exit like I mentioned, I'm just going to break it free because you see I'm actually counter steering a little bit. Now I'm in a neutral state and utilizing the banking of turn 2 to manage my exit. So let this play full throttle, and I'm just getting off the corner. So turn 2, just to preface that as well, can bite a lot of people because they're opening the wheel up too early, and they'll get to the outside wall too early as well. So I'll rewind this a little bit. So the closer you get to this wall, let's say we're getting to the wall right here, like the Verizon billboard on the outside of the fence, and that's going to be tedious and not a good exit angle because you get into it too early, and you're going to have a lot more wheel load and wheel angle to the left trying to stay off the wall. And you can see I'm not using a lot of wheel angle. You don't need to have a lot of wheel angle. You just need to make sure you wrap the exit. So as you see here, another sign like we used on entry to turn 1 to turn away from the wall. Now, this is where we're going to try to maximize where we're getting closest to the wall for exit of 2. We're not trying to get to the exit sooner or later. You can see this sign right here, the take 5 sign. That's a good rule of thumb to get there. So you actually know the angle you're getting. Now turn 3 is going to be similar qualities to the brake pedal, but it's also going to be more into a aggressive banking, because of having to slow the entry down a little bit more and having more banking to use. Now, see I'm turning away from the wall, same process as turn 1, not using so much wheel. Now I'm off the throttle. I'm not to the brake pedal as quick as I was in turn 1. That's because this is a wider also arc into the corner, but I'm carrying a longer duration of cornering down to the white line. So a little bit more brake to slow it down. Cross this seam, gonna actually use a less brake so I'm not slowing it down. I'm in a rolling phase a lot longer than I am in turn 1, and I'm actually picking throttle up to manage, not take too much speed away because of how much grip we have at this phase. I need to make sure I'm still carrying some partial throttle to make sure I'm not just going to clip this apron with the left front edge and wash up the track. So partial throttle and now 100% throttle. Going to battle the same thing like I did off of turn 2. Try to exit turn 4. Not get too wide here because it's even lighter off of turn 4 than turn 2 because of how aggressive you are in shaping the wheel all the way really past the restart zone or to the restart zone. So very key to get that. Once you get to the restart zone, really a quarter of the way, as you can see, that's where I get closest to the wall. That's just a rule of thumb I have. It's a good, easy marker to utilize and visually see it. So that is just breaking down our 10th lap. I'm going to go down to our 25th lap and let this play through. And just so you guys can see the pace difference. And you can see I'm already off like 8/10 from lap 10. It's a 33:36. Lap 25. Ultimately, even more 9/10. So almost a full second. Let this play through. More brake. Rolling phase. I am on looser version just so you guys are aware. So you do see some counter steering because it is a little free, yes. Probably not going to have a decent rolling phase here. Rolling throttle just to manage my apex speed. Get off the bottom. Fighting a little bit of loose condition for sure, but got all the grip I need to. So now I want to dissect the top side in 1 and 2. I'm going to go to the 30th lap here. And I would say I had a pretty optimal 1 and 2 on angle that I wanted. So I'm going to let this play through fully and then rewind it back to lap. Dissect it. Okay, so that's top side 1 and 2. I ran a bottom of 3 and 4 just to clarify. You can run the top if you want as well, but I find 1 and 2 much easier running the top than in 3 and 4, and more rewarding because you can carry exit momentum. So let's let this play through. You can tell I'm going to be carrying some entry speed, so I'm not trying to use too much brake to slow it down. I'm going to make sure I'm just getting off the throttle at a decent rate so I can transition to the brake and then get off that brake pedal the closer I actually get to loading into the banking here. So very key. You know, I talked about it in the qualifying video, but very key in the distance you're covering from the wall to where your right side is. Very important because you want to make sure you're loading the right front and right rear, you know, the quarter panels like the fenders, just over the wheels, just so you know, on the same distance. You don't want to put the right front too early to get it too tight, because if you do that, then you have to jump out of the throttle the closer you get to the wall, right? So you want to get to the wall as smooth as possible, and to do that is you're working the front and the rear tires at the same rate up to the wall. So partial throttle now just to manage my apex speed like I mentioned. You know, I'm working up to the wall, getting up there pretty even. Now I'm going to be battling some counter steer because it's, you know, I'm just into the throttle quite heavy. Now I have a couple options here. I can stay on this wall and really work on, you know, maximizing my ability from 3/4 of the corner off, or I can be consistent and maximize at an earlier portion by staying maintenance throttle, balancing the car a little bit better than what you see in counter steering here, and exit just a little bit away from the wall, you know, through the center to the 5/8 to the 3/4 marks of corner and through 1 and 2. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually stay maintenance throttle. I'm going to pull away from the wall a little bit, and you can see I'm not exiting there. I'm just going to exit about a quarter of a lane lower. So I'm just maximizing that ability to, you know, open the wheel up and carry that momentum that I created at an earlier set, you know, of running the top side than I would the bottom. So this is just a momentum lane, which is great. So I'm going to rewind this just a hair, and I can enter on this seam. I can work up to the wall like I am here. I can use less throttle to turn away from the wall and pretty much exit from this point all the way to the exit of the corner on this seam with the left sides. So that's something to think about. Just something that you guys might feel better with. And I would, you know, really just say work on testing this top side because it's going to be rewarding. I would say this week being cool track temp, but also to the same point, it's going to be a detriment for one factor: carrying more center speed, which is causing more friction and more heat buildup to the rear tires, because you're gonna, even to the front tires, because you're carrying more center speed, you're carrying more throttle, and that's gonna actually induce more tire wear at a quicker rate than you would running the bottom. So I'm gonna let this play in chase view and just let it go for the whole lap, and we'll end the video after this. As you can see, I had 1 and 2 like I mentioned. You know, just turning away from the wall and keeping about a quarter of a lane off for exit. So partial throttle, battling a little bit of loose condition, but I anticipate, you know, being in traffic, the car to be a little bit tighter. So that's just something, you know, I tried working towards building a little bit more of a free option if you guys wanted it for traffic, and then managing your tires like you need to. So that's going to do it for me this week on Homestead Miami Speedway for week 1. And hope you guys you saw some advantages of what you can get out of this car, what you should be doing, and some of the tendencies it has. So with that said, if you guys have any questions, please reach out. Always here.